your flesh and blood.
Welcome to Tell Me Your Story. New paradigms for a new world where we're giving you choices and knowledge of those choices to help make your dreams come true. We are here 9 times a week. Sundays at 7 a.m. and 7 p.m., Monday mornings at 1 a.m., Wednesdays at 9 a.m., and Monday through Friday from 8 to 9 a.m., streaming live at all those times at richarddugan.com. We are on SoundCloud, iTunes, TuneIn Radio, Spotify, Stitcher, Player FM, as well as YouTube, where you can watch these conversations. I hope that you will take time to subscribe and click notifications so that when a new conversation is posted, you'll be notified and you'll be able to tune in, listen in, and learn, and be entertained and inspired. A reminder that Choices, which is my book, 5 Steps for Life, it's available on Amazon.com in paperback, hardcover, and Kindle with Audible, soon to be released. We also ask that if you can support the work that we are doing financially, we do have a PayPal account. It is there for your security as well as ours. And when they ask for an email address to whom you're sending, please go to richard@richarddugan.com. That's the email address. If you go to richarddugan.com, there is also a link directly to PayPal so that you can send us whatever support you can. And we thank you to those who have helped and to those who will help. We also ask that you take time during this decade of perfect vision, the 2020s, to go within to that quiet, peaceful, calm, still place and listen to that still, small voice. And with that, we now take you to our very special interview and guest here on Tell Me Your Story. Welcome to Tell Me Your Story. I am Richard Dugan, Reverend Dr. D, and it is really a pleasure to come your way to share with you on this particular program about how to stay healthy and well and all those good things so that those of us, such as myself, who want to live to be 100, which means I've got 35 more years to go, in a quality of life, not quantity. I don't want to live to be 100 and debilitated by any means. So I'm doing everything I can. And we're going to get some help with all of that, no matter how many years you want to live, with our very special guest. He's the founder and CEO of an interesting organization, a company, Life Enthusiast. His name is Martin Pytela. Martin, thank you so much for joining us here on the program, all the way from the northern parts of the American continent, Canada.
Yes, thank you for having me, Richard. It's a pleasure to be here. Let's start with that.
Thank you. And
glad to share a message of hope and message of, hey, listen, your health span could match your lifespan nearly 100%. Not the last X years spent in a human warehouse, sitting in a wheelchair, drooling in front of a screen whose flickerings you don't comprehend.
Well, I'll tell you, the one thing that is the biggest challenge in this conversation, not so much for you and I, but for people listening is, yeah, well, that's what Martin says. Well, we're going to kind of dispel a lot of that because it's not just you, Martin. It's not just your organization. It's not just Life Enthusiasts with all of the accolades that you have behind your name. By the way, what if you can tell us, what is CMTA? What does that acronym stand for?
Certified Metabolic Typing Advisor. It has me educated in ways of how genetics and your nutritional inputs will interact. Meaning, what you put in your mouth has a profound impact on your health outcomes.
Well, you know, I've been saying that for years. Matter of fact, I got flagged by YouTube because I made a comment and it was a metaphor. Okay? I may get in trouble again with if I repeat it, but the metaphor was comparing what you just said to an experience my wife and I had back in Phoenix, and we were driving a Volkswagen Jetta, and it was a diesel vehicle, and we took it into the car wash, which also had gas pumps associated with it, and we ran it through the car wash, brought it to get it filled up, and they say, hey, and I said, make sure put diesel in it. They put gasoline in the car. And of course we started to drive out and the engine sounded really funky. We immediately stopped. They paid for the repairs, which obviously they should. But the example was, You don't want to put diesel into a gasoline engine, and you don't want to put gasoline into a diesel engine. And it's the same thing here when it
Yeah.
comes to food. You want to put the right things
You
because,
know,
go ahead, please, go
but
ahead.
this is a profound, simple metaphor that actually matches closely the human experience. Diesel is a thicker fuel that requires higher compression and higher temperature to burn. Gasoline is a lighter fuel that burns at a lower compression and lower temperature, much easier. And in human experience, we have carbohydrates, which would be like the gasoline, and fats, which would be like the diesel. And we have people, some of whom have the genetics that require the lighter fuel because they're poor converters of food into energy. And we have others who are exceedingly good converters, and they need to have the thicker, fatty fuel in order to function. Because if you give them carbs, they burn out. And I
Mm,
want to illustrate that on the North American Indian. They followed the buffalo, the prairie Indian. They followed the buffalo and they ate beef with beef on top of some beef. And in the winter, they had some pemmican, which was bear fat and dried blueberries.
mm,
So
which,
when the Europeans showed up with wheat and its derivative, whiskey, there was no genetic preparation in the experience of the prairie natives to experience carbohydrates. It completely overwhelms them.
mm. Well, it's fascinating to do those kinds of that kind of research and study, because I often wondered, why is it that the stereotypical Native American experience with alcohol is consistent? It's like, wait a minute, there's something not right here. I mean, it's one thing if you consume, you know, bottle after bottle after bottle after bottle. That I could understand why you're having the problems you're having. But it wouldn't require that much for the natives to consume before they were having all kinds of problems. And of course the alcoholism and so forth. Whereas the Europeans, as you have told us. Go ahead.
Yeah. There's one more angle hiding in the genetics. We have two dominances. Visualize this. You could be left-handed or right-handed, or you could be blue-eyed or brown-eyed.
Hmm.
Well, in the metabolic domain, you can be either alkalizing by fats or acidifying by fats. And the corollary is you will be alkalizing by carbs or acidifying by carbs. And one is always different from the other. Like you're either left-handed or right-handed. We label it autonomic and oxidizer. Well, oxidizer gets acidified by the carbs, the alcohol, and the autonomic goes the other way. It gets alkalized. Here's what it matters. When you alkalize a person, they become lazy, they become despondent, and they become depressed. And they easily fall asleep and stay asleep.
Hmm. Mm.
The other ones, the oxidizer, the more you feed them carbohydrates, they become irritable, irritated, impatient, argumentative, pick a fight, and can't go to sleep, cannot shut it down. So go to a cocktail party where they serve carby canapes and a bunch of alcohol and watch what happens.
Mm.
The autonomics will start first by becoming jovial and friendly. Then they overshare and say too much. Then they start regretting that and start crying about it. And then they fall asleep.
Mm.
But the oxidizers, they get louder, more controversial, more argumentative. And if they keep going, they'll even pick a fight.
Mm.
And they'll go all night long because the more you drink, or the more you consume carbohydrate, I should say, the less you can sleep.
Mm.
There's the secret to the metabolic differentiation of the human types.
I'm curious. I want to throw this into the mix here. What your thoughts are, especially when it comes to genetic engineering, but more along the lines of this technology that's been around. It's been around for a little while, called CRISPR, where they can actually go in and manipulate or take a this or
Mm.
that out and
Yeah,
of the chromosomes or the
yeah,
DNA, I forget which,
yeah,
and they can
yeah,
eliminate certain conditions,
yeah,
certain diseases. And I think one of the first ones
yeah,
that was focused on was sickle cell anemia in
yeah.
Black Americans,
Right,
and
right.
it seemed to work. But my first thought was, okay, so you have removed that genetic disposition, but what unintended consequences have you created? And this goes to my
Yeah,
question I ask anytime we have innovation in any area of our lives is just because we
yeah.
can, does that mean we should? What are your thoughts on
Yeah.
that concept and just in general,
Yeah.
this whole concept of genetic engineering?
Mhm. Yeah, do you remember a Disney movie? It was a hand animated. It had a Mickey Mouse as a sorcerer's apprentice.
Wasn't that Fantasia?
It was one of the episodes inside of Fantasia.
Okay.
Fantasia had multiple clips put
Oh,
together, and one of
okay.
them was Mickey Mouse, and he got clever with his magic stick, and he caused his mops to dance and whatever. Things got away on him. I don't know how fresh your memory is of it, but it was a
It's been a
total
while.
disaster.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, poor Mickey thought he was doing marvelously well until the thing took off on him.
Yeah.
We have another recent example here, which is the mRNA technology that has been pushed into people. That's
And what
another one of those
what is that? What is
gifts that
mRNA?
keeps on. mRNA, messenger ribonucleic acid. It's the technology behind the recent COVID shots.
Ah.
It's the it's the replicators. What
Mm-hmm.
they do is they say we don't need to give you an attenuated virus. Instead, we're going to package inside of this little ball of it's called liposome. It's a little ball of fat, and
Mm-hmm.
inside of it, we'll put in mRNA, which is the messenger technology that tells your genetics to do stuff.
Mm-hmm.
And as you package it, they say, well, we don't even have to do the attenuated virus. We're just going to develop it through computer technology. It's a piece of data that will program into these proteins, put them in, and push them in.
Mm.
And look what we've got.
Yeah. You know,
We got,
I think about some of the conditions that we didn't have 30, 40, 50 years ago. And then one statistic I remember hearing in 1960, the year of my birth, the obesity rate in America, specifically in America, was 1%. Now, here we are in 2025, and I wouldn't be surprised if the obesity rate in the United States of America is over 50%. The statistic I heard was it
oh
was
yeah, it's well past.
41% a couple of years
Yeah,
ago. And
yeah, yeah.
then we have all of the ancillary conditions that come along, heart disease, diabetes. I mean, the list just goes on and on that we never,
Yeah.
and then we see commercials on television, which my wife and I have kind of concluded, first of all, there is no problem. However, we've got this pill for the problem we're listing. So you need to check with your doctor to see if maybe you have this problem, which actually doesn't exist. They just want to get you on a. So if you even have one of those symptoms, but then I listened to the side effects. There was this heart medication, to keep you from having a heart attack. And one of the side effects was a heart attack. And I'm going, really? It seems as though we have engineered ourselves, whether we're talking about, genetic manipulation or better living through chemistry, we've engineered ourselves almost right into a corner, or if you want to put it more bluntly and so forth, right into the grave.
Well, okay. We have invented a society in which we have allowed money to hold sway over our legislative process.
Mm-hmm.
It starts with money is allegedly free speech, and then you can now hire somebody to do your speech for you. Meaning
Mm-hmm.
this: I have money, I will hire a lobbyist, the lobbyist will affect act or discuss it with the legislator will tilt the playing field in the favor of the what the money wants, and before you know it, you are now doing things that are not wholesome for the society. They're just beneficial for the people who are paying for the activity. And so we now have a chemical industry that gets favors from the government. Pharmaceutical industry gets favors. Agricultural industry gets favors. Let me start with this. So I have subsidies to grow certain foods: corn, wheat, soy. What else is on that list? I think chickpeas and a few other things. Anyway, mostly grains. So they're subsidized. So we overproduce them. Then we put those into highly processed foods, and we put those foods into grocery stores, and with government subsidy money, we will give stamps to people so that they can buy these subsidized foods. And those foods are not healthy. They're destroying your health. So they will now be having bad health outcomes, such as 50% obesity and high level of diabetes and heart disease and blah, blah, all that. So now I have to take tax money and put it into some sort of a healthcare insurance scheme that will allow me to help those people with pharmaceutical products to get over the problem that is not caused by a deficiency in a painkiller.
Right.
So we have tilted the playing field in so many ways that we have subsidized agriculture, making subsidized food sold to poor people who are subsidized to be fixed by subsidized medicine through the subsidized insurance industry. Ta-da!
Yeah. And now we find ourselves, and it's not just in the United States. This is global in many countries.
Well, the United States is much worse than any other.
Yeah.
We're definitely best at that.
Yeah. I guess if you want to be number one, be number one in something. It may not be great for your population, but at least you're number one. Now, I want to move out of that area because we pretty much know a lot of people. They're very upset with the government for doing this, that, and the other thing when it comes to whether it's agriculture or healthcare, what have you. We talk about this on the program quite often. We give people choices and knowledge of those choices to help make their dreams come true. It is never someone outside of self that is responsible for what happens to me. You can blame all the people that you want, but who put the food in your mouth? You did.
Yeah.
You heard the words from different people, such as yourself and so forth, and yet you continue to put that same food in your mouth that is perpetuating the health issues that you're dealing with.
Yeah, Richard, it's complicated because
I know.
ultra processed food, the ultra processed food is highly seductive and highly addictive. Much like earlier in our conversation, I was talking about the carbohydrate being overwhelming to the metabolic system of a person who's not designed for it.
Right.
That these addictions are really overwhelming, myself included. Like if you leave me alone with a bag of, say, Doritos chips, I will find a way to justify eating every single one of them. I will not leave the bag until it's empty.
Yeah. Well,
it's designed that way.
Yeah.
Designed with a very devilish kind of, I don't know what you call it. Well, anyway, it's seductive beyond what your rational mind can manage.
I have to tell you that.
So I don't want to blame anyone, but you said it. It's I blame no one for being in the situation they're in.
Right.
But it's totally up to the individual to dig themselves out of it.
Exactly.
Nobody else will do it for you.
And they can dig themselves out of that hole. We're going to talk about that. We're talking with Martin Pytela. We're going to talk more about the work that he is doing as we continue here on Tell Me Your Story. I'm Richard Dugan, your host, and we're here with Martin Pytela, and we're talking about your health, your well-being. We're also talking about What I love the name of this, Life Enthusiast. That is a great title. And I want to find out more, but I want to find out about you a little bit in that how did you get to where you are today? What was the catalyst that woke you up and said, hey, there's something wrong here. We need to make some changes, and I've got to do the research to find out how to make those changes. What propelled
Mm.
you forward?
Yeah, I'm a bit atypical because I grew up in a communist country behind the Iron Curtain
Hmm.
in a police state. And I took computer science and business administration in the schooling there. And then at age 24, I realized that there was no way I could survive that. And so I decided to come out, emigrate, put myself into the hands of United Nations Charter for Refugees and beg for mercy. And
Mm.
back then, 1976, uh, I ended up in Canada. And then I got me a job. I was a young man, strong and whatnot. I worked in a sawmill, lots of physical work. I didn't speak the language then, so I was learning to speak English and I was picking up the local ways. And 90 days in, there I was with full insurance, health insurance, because the shop was unionized. So I went to the dentist and they did a sell job on me. I didn't realize that they were not working for me, they were working for themselves.
Hmm.
So they first question, do you have an insurance? And I said, yes. A person with insurance doesn't care what things cost.
Hmm.
Two, they sold me on you need a bunch of fillings. And they said, well, you can have the silver ones or the white ones. The silver ones will last twice as long, and the white ones cost extra. So I said, any other difference? No, just that. So I went for the silver fillings. I was not informed that it was silver mercury amalgam filling. Mercury being the operative word, the most toxic thing you can put into a human body. I mean, I don't know what to say about it. It travels to the shop in a hazardous material packaging. They have to collect all the leftovers in a specialized container that they ship back with hazardous material handling. But in my mouth, magically, it becomes just fine. Well, it wasn't just fine. I got really sick.
Mm.
And so the next 10 years I spent going downhill. Carpal tunnel syndrome and plantar fasciitis and bad back and periodontal disease and gum loss and what else did I get? Allergies, weight gain, mental, fog, brain fog, not working properly and all of that. So that was a decline that was pretty steep, really.
Mm.
So at 35, I had the health of a 69-year-old. So
Wow.
that was unusual. So I thought this is not normal. And I was looking for help in the mainstream. I went to the surgeons and chiropractors, naturopaths and whatnot, and I was not getting well. So at some point, I had this epiphany. I'm a systems analyst, business management consultant. I could analyze this. And the upshot is, oh my God, they poisoned you with mercury and they didn't tell you.
Mm.
This is the basis of Robert Kennedy's mission in life, right? Remember how he was not wanting to touch the vaccinations because he just wanted to talk about fish. He's
Hmm.
not anti-fish, he's just anti-mercury.
Hmm.
Well, turns out that the vaccinations up to very recent times have been loaded with metals and are making people sick. And the industry insists every which way they can that everything's fine. It's not fine.
Mm.
We will hear about it yet. Anyway, ta-da. So that's how I got sick. I got sick with metals, and I had to fix it, and I had to figure it out. So after 20 years in information technology and management consulting, I decided, the heck, I'm just going to teach other people what's really going on. So here I am.
Mm. Well, I know that there are a lot of people out there who are trying to inform people and educate people about taking care of their own health. And there are a couple of methods that may or may not be part of the work that you are doing. One of them has to do with our own built in way of knowing what's best for us, and that's our intuition. Some people will also use another method that is called kinesiology. And I learned about it. It was referred to back in the 80s as muscle testing, as it was taught to me. And then I learned the actual name of it was kinesiology. And there comes a point where when I first learned about it, it was a physical thing where I took the one hand and then I took the other hand and I would ask a question, yes or no. And if it parted, it was no. And if it stayed together, it was yes. But there comes a
Mm-hmm.
point where you don't need this anymore. It's inside you. You just know that I should not grab that box of Fruit Loops or that bag of cookies or whatever it is. And I love not and this isn't necessarily a failsafe, but it used to be, they used to say, never shop in the middle of a grocery store, always shop around the edges. But even today, the edges aren't all that safe anymore because things are so processed throughout in terms of what you find at the grocery
Yeah.
store. So, farmers markets are a wonderful place to go in terms of food, and so forth. And we have wonderful ones here in the Santa Barbara area. It's wonderful. But when you start talking about being enthusiastic about one's life, tell us about, if you would, the story of Life Enthusiast. How did that come about?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. By the way, look, this is a pendulum.
Yes.
This is one of the kinesiological tools that lets you make a statement and watch it either go true or not true,
Hmm.
just like you were showing with the fingers.
Right.
Because when you make a true statement, you're stronger. When you make a false statement, you're weaker for
Hmm.
about 2 seconds. So you can actually follow this thing, and you can always petition the universal field of consciousness and make a claim, and it will either approve it as true or deny it as false. I just admire you for saying it because I've been doing it, but most people say, "Oh, that's weird."
Yeah.
Well, uh-huh. So going to the point that you made, which
Hmm.
is uh, how Life Enthusiast. Well, I'm running Life Enthusiast 2.0. 1.0 was born in 1989. It was started on or launched on July 4th, 1989, as a company to market superfoods, which was the fellow that started it was really ill with toxicity from aluminum. He was working in the agricultural business, walking barefoot in fertilized fields and carrying around irrigation pipe. And by the time he was 33, he was health devastated. He said, very, very religious man, I would call it, biblical scholar, really. Fourth generation Seventh day Adventist.
Mm.
And he would say to in his prayer, help me find a solution or please end my life. I can't take it. And sure enough, he woke up with an inventor's dream in which it was revealed to him that he could combine emulsifiers, antioxidants, seeds, fiber, 12 different items. If you put this all together, you will create a compound that is a compensation for the disaster that's causing ill health in humans.
Mm.
So he put it together, and sure enough, it healed him from his allergies. And so he started sharing it. And about 6 years later, I met him, and I'm the software guy. I'm the marketing on the internet. So in 2002, we launched online Life Enthusiast 2.0, going direct to consumer with the internet. But we still, to this day, make these superfoods.
So tell me, first of all, I know that here in the States, it may be the same in Canada. You have to be careful what you say about the product that you release. For example, in this country, you cannot say unless it has been approved by the government agency, the FDA. You cannot say that this particular thing, whatever it is, cures anything. You have to label it as a
Yeah,
supplement or those kinds of things. Um,
yeah,
do you have
yeah. It's a
different?
funny thing.
Go ahead.
Hmm.
Hmm.
Well, it's this, right? It's the cure or treat or diagnose or heal or make better. If you use those words, you're claiming, well, the FDA claims that as a drug. So if I tell you that your apple with its content of malic acid is going to soften the gallstones in your gallbladder and allow you to pass them, I have now turned that apple into a drug.
Okay.
And so I can say an apple a day keeps a doctor away, or my Granny Smith apples are the sourest Granny Smith apples on the market, but I cannot tell you, and it will help you with your gallbladder.
Hmm. You know, it's
Yeah,
interesting
it's a
because
joke.
yeah, there are so many different things out there that people are trying to find to help them to get through the conditions that they have. I happen to have been diagnosed, and now I've lived in Santa Barbara, for example, for 19 years. Moved here from Phoenix back in 2006, and uh, I did not have high blood pressure. I did not have high blood sugar. And today, I don't have high blood pressure because, and I did for a while, and I was taking a med for it, but it's under control. I have a cuff that I check every so often to see where I'm at. But the blood sugar I had under control until 2022 March, when my father passed away. And then I had another friend, best friend of 53 years, who passed away. And I tried to explain to my doctor that the stressors of grief can affect my blood sugar. And he said, no, that's not possible. And I'm going, yeah, because nothing's compartmentalized in the body. It's all part of the whole. So the stress, and I read about this, the stressors, they affect the hormones, then the hormones affect the blood sugar, the processing thereof, and there you go. And I'm sitting here
Yeah,
going, there's got to be another way. There has got to be because I had it at normal without meds. Matter of fact, I brought it down from 500 to normal in a month and a half. In a month and a half. And it stayed there until my father's passing. And I haven't been able to get it back down where it's supposed to be. And then I started asking this question, Martin, where yes, there are certain statistical norms. 20 over 80 in blood pressure is usually, I guess, a norm. It's a good place for your blood pressure to be 120 over 80.
yeah,
But some people run a little higher, 130, maybe 140 over 85, 90, and so forth. They're still in the normal range. It's just the high end of the normal range. So I started wondering about my blood sugar in the same way. Is my blood sugar where it's supposed to be, or am I in danger of creating all kinds of side effects, kidney issues and heart issues and on and on and on? Talk to us, not specifically necessarily about blood pressure and glucose levels, but about this aspect of the statistical norms versus the individual norms when it comes to health and wellness.
all right. Well, it's this way. The long-term indicator of how you're doing metabolically vis-a-vis insulin is called age 1C. A1C. Yeah,
A1C.
HbA1c.
Yeah.
And anything above 5.5 is alarming. Anything above 6 is critical, and higher is, oh my God. So many people are high in there. What that picture reveals is how your body's coping with insulin, because you're getting too much glucose in your blood, and it's the red blood cells that are getting affected by it. So those individual spikes, that's one thing, but the consistent long range is another.
Mm-hmm.
Let's describe it this way. So you take some food, if it's glucose, let's start with starch. If it's starch, it turns into glucose. The glucose, if it's in excess, is being chased by insulin to convert it into belly fat. So you now are in the territory that's forever chasing too much glucose, too much insulin. The place where the glucose is used is in your muscles. That's also where it's stored. So if you have a greater muscle mass, you'll be better off because you have a greater storage. That's your battery. But here's the problem with the stress. The hormone of stress that's released by your adrenals is called cortisol. And cortisol puts you in a state of fight or flight, ready to defend or ready to attack. And so when cortisol goes up, your glucose gets released into circulation so that you can better deal with the danger. And it's usually seen as a physical danger, at least from the perspective of the body, because we're an ancient creature by design.
Mm-hmm.
So cortisol kicks in because of stress. Glucose goes into circulation because of what cortisol says. It's followed by insulin, which then gives you this pre-diabetic condition. So your primary driver is that stress, which is that PTSD that's caused by your loss of your loved ones and whatever else.
Mm-hmm.
So that's the circle that you're currently running in.
Right.
And if I were to suggest a solution, it would be a herbal tincture that will help you lower the cortisol level, which will in turn lower the glucose level, which will in turn lower the insulin level, which will in turn make you slimmer and take away all that metabolic illness that you're currently experiencing.
Well, first of all, I can tell you that I'm pretty doggone slim. My wife's a little concerned because I have been 200 pounds. I'm only 5'9".
All right.
I am now 160 and kind of hovering.
Good on you.
All right. Well, good
Yeah.
on me, but my wife says it's probably due to the fact that I have type 2 and so forth. And and if I got my glucose levels balanced again, maybe I might put on a little weight. I'm not unhappy with 160. But it's an interesting dynamic that we find ourselves in as human beings when it comes to this whole aspect of processing of our intake, whatever that might be. We're going to talk more about that. I want to carry this on as we continue here talking with Martin Pytela. We're talking about life enthusiast. I'm very enthused by my life. I'm excited. I'm still optimistic. I'm positive, a positive thinker. I'm looking for exciting things to be happening in the coming days and in the coming moments as we continue here on Tell Me Your Story. I'm Richard Dugan with our very special guest from Life Enthusiast. He's the founder thereof, Martin Pytela. Thank you so much for being with us. I want to talk more about some of the other aspects of health and wellness. Now, yes, we can certainly get through Life Enthusiasts many of these herbs or tinctures and so on and so forth. I love the concept of just putting it under your tongue and letting it rest there for a while, and then it's absorbed much faster than taking a pill or capsule. But I'd like to talk a little bit, and going into that area we touched upon earlier as far as kinesiology, about maybe the term is mindfulness. Maybe the term is trusting one's intuition, whatever you want to call it, because it seems as though, and I heard this, oh my God, I couldn't believe this joke. This one gentleman was telling this joke on stage about weight gain, or not weight gain and loss, but about people who die. And he talked about people like Steve Jobs, who was not a health nut as far as we know. I don't know what his diet was, but anyway. And then you have people like, oh, I don't know, a person like Richard Simmons, who died early. And it's like he was a big health nut. And it's like, well, maybe that really doesn't work, the whole thing. At least not for him anyway, because supposedly he took really good care of himself, and yet he still died of what he died of. The reality is, my father put it this way: eat, drink, and be merry in moderation, because nobody gets out of this world alive. But my point to something like that is, but what about your quality of life? Are you spending most of your time sitting in the waiting room at the doctor's office? That's not quality of life. And I don't want to spend a lot of time. So, talk to us about this aspect of trusting self, trusting that inner voice, following that guidance, even when that craving for Kentucky Fried Chicken comes along or whatever it is. Um, and you say, no, I know that's not good for me, and I'm not gonna eat that. I'm not gonna put that in my body.
There's so many factors here that's, yeah, I don't know.
And you just
I
go,
had
you
about
go.
12 different thoughts. I had about 12 different thoughts as you're talking. So, for one, Steve Jobs was a nut who went on a fruitarian diet in his young days. A fruitarian is somebody who eats fruits only. He wanted to be the cleanest. Turns out that fructose is metabolized only in your liver, nowhere else. So if you are of the genetics that are not tropical, where your ancestors for many generations have been eating tropical fruit, and if you start as a Norwegian or something like that, who has a 90-day growing season and needs to eat dry cod, salmon, and reindeer, if you go fruitarian with that body, you're going to blow out your liver
Mm.
and your pancreas. And he did. The other example, Richard Simmons, he was on a diet that was low fat. They Some people are okay with that. It's the genetics. We talk about the metabolic typing. There are types that are more the farmers than the hunters, but great many people come with the hunter genetics. And they, like the diesel car, need to be fed the kind of fuel that is matching their design. And if you put yourself on a highly carby diet, you're going to end up, or not even highly carby, higher than what your genetics call for. Like it's a degree.
Hmm.
Some are outright Eskimo who should be eating raw seal meat and whale blubber uncooked, whereas others with, I don't know, North African heritage, you would grow up eating dates, figs, pomegranates, and drinking camel milk, which is carb, 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 and carb. But most people from northern latitudes or farther away from the equator are supposed to be eating foods that are quite diesel-like, more fat, less starch.
Right.
That's how you end up with diabetes type 2, mismatching your genetics with your food intakes.
Okay.
And since 1970s, when Dean Ornish and the likes came with low fat is the way to go, low fat is the way to go for some people,
Hmm.
but mostly not.
Okay. So, do you
So
think
if
that
you
DNA
are,
testing is a good thing for people to do to find out where their ancestors come from, so that they can know a little
yeah,
bit
yeah,
better?
sure. It'll answer it. Like, for example, you can look at me. I'm from Eastern Europe, but I have 45% Ashkenazi Jewish, 40% Eastern European Slavic, but I get Turkish, Swedish, Western European, French, German, all kinds of mixed.
Hmm.
I have 2.5% Neanderthal. What I don't have is African. I have none of that.
Okay.
Okay, well, so big deal, right? In America, this becomes complicated because you're now mating something like me with, well, you have British Isles mating with Caribbean, mating with sub-Saharan African, mating with God knows what.
Mm-hmm.
So it's a melting pot.
Right.
So it's an interesting reading. It'll tell you who your ancestors were, but it won't tell you the dominances. For that, you should do the metabolic typing test. We want to find out if you are if you start in your day as overly alkaline or acidic, and you want to find out whether you're alkalizing by fats or carbs, and you want to find out your endocrine dominance, which will dictate the shape of your body, how you gain weight and lose weight.
And you
So
provide
with
that
those
test
answers in
like,
hand,
you
yeah,
provide
we
that
do
kind
that.
of a test, yeah? Yeah.
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah. We give away the information. If you want to figure it out for yourself, it's totally doable. It just
Mhm.
takes time.
Right.
The test is quicker. Just hand it to you in a booklet that says, well, you should be eating 3 meals a day, each with some protein, and focus on vegetables with fats.
Hmm.
Or
So
we tell you something else, whatever.
yeah,
We'll tell you, eat big breakfast, or no, don't eat breakfast, eat big dinner. We can tell you all that because
yeah.
there are these differences that matter. Now,
And because our bodies have been programmed in the way that they have been from birth, especially here in America, you can't really trust your body in one sense. In one sense, you can't really trust your body to be telling you the truth about what you should be ingesting, or is that a fallacy that you can not? And again, you have to differentiate between what the body needs and what the body is craving. The body doesn't need KFC, the body is craving KFC. There's a difference there.
yeah, yeah. The problem I think is in the ultra processed foods because uh, a good word for it would be food porn. It's so seductive that will override your normal control system. So
Hmm.
you end up eating more than you need, and you'll keep coming back for more, even though it's not good for you.
Right, right. So
Yeah, it's
is
that.
is that metabolic test that you provide, is that something that only needs to be done once, or should it be done periodically so that because the body would be changing if I'm going to change the intake based upon the first test, then I'd want to be tested what, another year or two later, because what I'm taking in, if I am choosing to follow the guidelines in that respect, and it is all a choice, no one's forcing anybody to do anything here. I choose to shift my diet, then I would want to take another metabolic test. I don't know how frequently, because that would change. The test results would change as I'm doing this. Correct?
Yeah, about 9 to 18 months after you implement the changes, you should retest to reconfirm that what you're doing is right.
Okay.
And we have gradual check-ins. We have something called daily check record, where we have this little sheet that asks you questions such as an hour and a half after I ate, I'm already craving something, I'm already hungry, or I'm nervous, or I'm too slow, I'm sluggish, I'm sleepy, I'm overbuzzed, whatever, like
Hmm.
different dysregulations. And we can tune it in, put you closer to the more flexible middle where you are going to be healthy with most
And,
choices possible.
and what is the bodily substance that's used for this test? Is it blood?
No, it's a quiz.
Oh, it's just a quiz.
It's a quiz.
Oh,
Mm.
painless. Well, for some. Those who
Well,
don't like quizzes, it's not so painless.
well, I'll be asking you questions, or the quiz will be asking you questions such as, my ears are more pink than the rest of my face.
Ah.
My shoulders are wide, or my shoulders are narrow. My pupils are wider than halfway, or
Mhm.
shut down close or tight. Or when I eat a high protein breakfast, I feel, and that could be, the
Mhm.
choice will be sleepy, energized, can't tell a difference.
Mhm.
stuff
Interesting.
like that. Anyway, about 120 questions with plenty of what shall we call it? Redundance to make sure that we'll get it right.
Right. Yeah, I've taken a few quizzes like that, not in terms of what you're talking about, but quizzes where it's like, well, wait a minute, they asked that question, but they're rephrasing it in a different way, and it lets me know, oh, they're just trying to make sure that the information I'm giving them is accurate, and consistent, and that's important
Mhm.
because I know that on some of these you could fudge, but you're not doing yourself any good by fudging on a quiz. It's not helping you, especially if you want to have a better quality of life. You know,
Yeah,
it's like, no, forget about the quiz. Just go eat your chocolate bar, and forget about this. No,
right.
you need to be honest with yourself when you're taking a quiz like this, and
Yeah,
that's real important. Hey, we're talking here with
yeah.
Martin Pytela, and Life Enthusiast is the website, lifeenthusiast.com. Here on Tell Me Your Story. I'm Richard Dugan here with Martin Pytela, and you know, this program talks about health and wellness all the time. And one of the subjects that I like to get into in a conversation like this has to do not so much with our intuition, although we've talked about that already, but about the spiritual ramifications of how our health and wellness affect our inner life, if you will. Um,
Yeah.
there are just as what you're doing, you're dealing primarily with the physical body, but it has an impact on the mental status of a person, the emotional status of a person. I'm
Yeah.
wondering, has it ever been measured? I don't know how you'd do this, what kind of questions you'd ask in terms of one's spiritual state.
Yeah. It's interesting that the marketing, the sell you stuff society
Hmm.
loves to pretend that it's a push button simple. Take this one thing and your problems go away. But all you're doing is majoring in minor things.
Yeah.
If you may recall the story of a professor in front of a class with a big jar and a bunch of golf balls that he's putting into the jar, filling it,
I
and
saw
saying,
this.
"Is that
Yes.
jar full?" Right? And then he goes to marbles and BBs and so on. Well, like this, your spiritual direction is what gives you the overall direction for your life. Your thoughts will form your emotions, will form your habits, which will form your character. That is more important than deciding whether you should or should not do something about whatever. Okay, spirituality, emotional health, what you're thinking, then comes the air, what you breathe,
Hmm.
then comes the water that you drink, and they should be unpolluted because if you have toxic air and toxic water, you give yourself trouble. And the water should also be structured, not just clean, not just filtered. And after that come macronutrients, which would be the calories from fats, proteins, and carbs.
Hmm.
And after that come all of the fancier things like minerals and vitamins and amino acids and whatever else. So that's like way down 7 or 8
Hmm.
when we start talking about supplements. We should
Hmm.
be talking about your spirituality is your direction set. Do
Right.
you know? And you're talking about this intuition. It's your connection to your higher self. You don't need to be a religious person to know that there is a guiding principle in here.
Absolutely.
But if you
Eh,
are a religious person, then you have a direct phone line to the guidance.
Yeah. I've even often said that to people. Look, I understand you've got a message for me from God, but see, He has my number. I'll even take a collect call. Okay. I appreciate the information you're giving me from your source, but I have a direct connection to my source. Even though I was born and raised Catholic and I was always told to go to the priest and go to confession and all those kinds of things, I have learned over the many decades I've been here that I find all the answers by going within and just listening, just being still and just listening. What about the concept of mindfulness? I mentioned that earlier, just in passing. What about that in terms of helping
Yeah.
and facilitating, and also because I mentioned in my book Choices: 5 Steps for Life, in the area where I talk about matching your personal input, and we're not specifically speaking here about food or liquid. I'm speaking of the people you surround yourself with, the things that you watch, the things that you listen to, the places that you go, etc., will have a profound impact on you and will affect your spirit, if you will, your soul.
Yeah. Yeah. Your emotional hygiene, your spiritual hygiene. Are you keeping are you keeping a watch at the gate of your consciousness? What are you allowing to pass in? Are you judicious and selectful with that?
Hmm.
Right?
Fascinating.
What kind of what kind of messages are you consuming on a daily basis?
Yeah.
Well, okay, so in practical terms, sciencey talk, we have the autonomic nervous system, and it regulates all the unconscious stuff, and it
Mhm.
has two branches: autonomic, sympathetic, parasympathetic, fight or flight, rest and repair, and digest. And if you are in the fight or flight, you're shutting down your intuition. You're in fear, and you're in the back brain, the lizard brain. You're operating no better than an animal. When you are in the parasympathetic, you give yourself the gap, the ability to count to 5 before you respond instead of react to an incoming message. And that ability gives you this capacity to think higher thoughts, be mindful. And this is the mindfulness, the meditation or mindfulness or pausing or just being thoughtful about your daily affairs.
Mhm.
First feel, then think, then act. And you want to gap the reaction into a response. And
Right.
when you do, you're mindful. You're not, well, you elevate yourself out of being a instinctive lizard to something that deserves to be called human.
I hear you. Do you spend much time meditating each day or each week?
Every day.
Every
Yeah,
day? Yeah.
every day. I actually, I took it out of the office. I also do an electronic meditation. I have a system called AO Scan, which I play to myself. It scans my entire body, checks all the organs, all the vibrations, all the chakras, all the meridians, all the inner workings that we know are there, and tells me where things are less than perfect. And then it sends me the balancing energies. So I do 20 minutes of that every day.
It's similar to a couple of things. One of them that I remember right offhand, a Rife frequency generator. I actually narrated their DVD back in 2005.
Wow.
I'm very proud of being a part of that. I have that DVD as well, and I listen
Yeah.
to it every so often, just going, "Who is that guy?" You know. But it's that's just one thing. But that's one of the things that I talk to many of my guests. I have one gentleman by the name of Jonathan Goldman, and he's involved in sound and vibration and tone. He's got a book on humming, and we talk every year in February about the World Sound Healing Day, for example. And the fact is that if we could find a quiet enough place on the planet, we could actually hear the sound of the earth, the hum, that tone that the earth puts out. I've heard people who have actually experienced that, and that each one of us has our own vibration.
Yeah.
Even and when you
Well,
talk about,
hmm, the
go ahead.
Schumann resonance that you may be referring to,
Hmm.
about 9.83 hertz, is a little ways below our audible range. It's in the infrasound range, but if you still yourself, you can feel it.
Right.
It's a vibration that's, well, it's 10 pulses per second, give or take, and it's there.
Yeah.
And if you still yourself enough, you will be resonating with that. And it's also the frequency of the alpha waves, which is the brainwave frequency that gives you the intuition, the relaxation, the connection to your higher self, and all of that. So
Wow.
good on you.
Wow. Wow. I mean, and I'm in the right, I'm in the right industry. I got into it very early, 19 years of age, but sound has always been important, and getting the volume of things right and so forth. But what is so fascinating, it's one example that I have here of vehicles, mostly by young people who are listening to their music, a lot of times with the windows rolled down. So they apparently think that we all want to hear what they're listening to. And their car is vibrating with every beat of the drum or whatever that is. Yeah. And the first thought that went through my mind when I started hearing these kinds of things when I was living in Phoenix was, how do you know that that vibration isn't loosening the nuts and bolts of your car? And if it's doing that to your car, what's it doing to your insides? And somebody, they actually did a study on this where if the vibration of whatever's going on around you is so high, it can actually affect your heartbeat. It can actually interfere with the beating of your heart. And I just thought, wow, that's, and of course, I know there are another gentleman by the name of Stephen Lewis who wrote a book called Sanctuary. I got to meet him in Phoenix. He was at a Wayne Dyer seminar or lecture. And I read his book, and I actually interviewed him many, many times on the program. And he takes one of your photographs, a head to toe photograph, puts it into his computer, analyzes it, and is able to send the balancing vibrations to your body specifically to put you at that 100 level. And that's his scale from 0 to 100. Uh, it's amazing what people are able to do. And I guess each individual is going to have to determine whether or not that's something that works for them. Just like they need to get a hold of you, get a hold of lifeenthusiast.com and find out if this would work for them. And what have you got to lose? Be honest with you, what you've got to lose is the bad health, the dis-ease, the discomfort, the stress. And I think I'm going to go to your website and take that quiz and see what I can find out, and see what I can release, because I don't mind being as thin as I am. I'm not skinny as a rail, like my bones are sticking through. You can see my ribs or anything. I used to bicycle everywhere in Phoenix when I was a young man. Was a paper boy for a long time too. And I was drinking sodas like they were going out of style, but I was never, ever diagnosed with type 2 diabetes because I was on that bicycle, and I was bicycling from Scottsdale to Glendale and north and south and east. And I was going everywhere, tens and 20 and 30, 40, 50 miles in a day or a week. I mean, it was just, so I was burning all of that off. But then when I got my lens implant, which was a wonderful thing, and now I can drive, I don't bicycle anymore. So I'm not exercising. And I have a feeling that may be the biggest key in my rejuvenating of my health and well-being regarding my glucose levels. So,
Well, when I talk to people about health, it's usually, I tell them it's four categories. You have to address all of them, and it's toxicity, malnutrition, stagnation, and trauma. And you talked about trauma. That's the vibrational stuff. That's your subconscious, your way around the world. Stagnation, that's the opposite of exercise, the
yeah,
opposite of movement, all of that. And we talked about nutrition.
yeah,
And of course, toxicity is something that the industrial age has brought upon us.
yeah,
And we're in a soup that's getting thicker and thicker with each year because
yeah,
there's more and more chemicals being produced, and they're not shipping them off planets, they're leaving them here. And
yeah,
so our environment is getting thicker with toxic things. And
yeah.
so it's harder and harder to remain well
It
in the
is.
world that we're living in currently.
It is indeed. We do our part here where we live to, for example, I tell people all the time, I said, look, I live up on the hill above everybody else, almost to the top of the mountain here in Santa Barbara. I would never, ever do an oil change and just let the oil leak out onto the ground because where's it going? It's going into the ground and it's probably going into the water table and it's going to contaminate the water that's coming from the sky, which is ionized and fantastic. I got to tell you, it's fantastic to drink. We had a rainstorm in here a year or so after we moved here, and then we had this beautiful pan sitting out there, and it was pouring, and this thing was full, and I'm going, I've heard that rainwater is really good, so I picked that pan up and I drank it. Oh, it was fabulous to drink rainwater straight from the sky. It's just marvelous. We are talking with Martin Pytela and Life Enthusiast, and we're talking about that story on Tell Me Your Story. I'm Richard Dugan, and Martin, I would like to thank you for being a part of what we're doing here to try to change the world, even if it's just one person at a time. It's a start. And thank you so much for what you are doing to change the world. Once again, one person at a time or a group at a time, however that works out. And I will also encourage people to go to your website, Life Enthusiast. So thank you for being here on the program.
Thank you. Thank you for giving me the space to share the way I'm thinking about it. Much appreciated.
Would love to have you back again to talk about some other areas and go more in depth in certain areas. And maybe go through a few of those questions in addition to what you've already shared with us here on the program. And I thank you folks for listening to and watching Tell Me Your Story, New Paradigms for a New World, where we are giving you choices and knowledge of those choices to help make your dreams come true. Sundays at 7 a.m. and 7 p.m., Monday mornings at 1 a.m., Wednesdays at 9 a.m., and then we are here Monday through Friday from 8 to 9 a.m., streaming live at those times at richarddugan.com. We're on SoundCloud, iTunes, TuneIn Radio, Spotify, Stitcher, Player FM, Blueberry, iHeartRadio, Amazon Music, and we're also on YouTube where you can watch these conversations. We hope that you will maybe click subscribe and then notification so that when a new podcast or video cast is posted, you'll be notified. We ask that you also get a copy of Choices 5 Steps for Life. It's available on Amazon. And if you'd like to leave us a tip, we'd appreciate it. Our tip jar is called PayPal. And we have links on the homepage of richarddugan.com where you can click to get a copy of Choices, which is in hardcover, paperback, and Kindle with Audible soon to be released. And there's a link there to our tip jar, PayPal. So we hope that you will do what you can, and we would greatly appreciate it. And finally, as we've already mentioned on the program, we hope that you'll take time during this decade of perfect vision, the 2020s, to go within to that quiet, peaceful, calm, still place for your health and well-being, and listen to and follow the promptings of that still small voice. And with all of that being said, we move to our final 3 questions for our very special guest. I can't thank you enough. The first of those 3 questions is, who is Martin Pytela?
Well, it's an evolving thing, a human being, really, probably a fraction of some spirituality dwelling in this suit of meat. I've raised 2 daughters. I have 2 grandsons. I enjoy that tremendously. And I engage with people, probably thousands upon thousands, who, God willing, have gotten their lives better. At least so they say. There are thousands of user reviews on the website. Our success rate is something like 98%.
What gets you up in the morning?
That I wake up joyful, knowing that today I'm going to meet another interesting person with whom I get to share something worth sharing.
Wonderful. And finally, what was your best day?
Ever?
However that comes out to you.
Well, I don't know. I mean, I could be listing things like I really like going to the ocean and putting my feet in the water and all of that. But in general, I think watching the birth of my children was the highlight of my life, really.
Well, Martin, once again, thank you so much for being a part of Tell Me Your Story. And we thank you folks for being a part of watching and listening to Tell Me Your Story. And until our next broadcast, podcast, video cast, love to lull. Jeanette, I'm still listening. Dad, continue to be happy because I am. Smokey, I will see you on the other side. Mike, thanks for being in my life. And to my dear friend Zorro, aho, aho.